So, I recently put on the pilot episode of Gilmore Girls to work on a video, but I was distracted by Rory's appearance. I just couldn't help but notice how natural and fresh-faced she looked. Alexis Bledel, the actress who plays Rory, was only 19 years old when she filmed the first season, so naturally, she was very youthful and didn't need much makeup. But this made me think about another show with teenagers, The Vampire Diaries. In The Vampire Diaries, the principal actress, Nina Dobrev, was 20 years old when filming the first season. When looking at these two characters, Elena Gilbert and Rory Gilmore, there's a stark difference in styling. If we expand further out and look at all the other actresses on both shows, there is a clear difference in the styling choices for all of them. All the characters on The Vampire Diaries are glamorous, makeup is always perfect, and hair is never out of place. Gilmore Girls, by contrast, took a much more conservative approach. The choices always felt realistic, and this made me wonder, what is more common when it comes to the depiction of teenagers on television shows? My initial reaction was to assume that the reason for the difference was the fact that Gilmore Girls had a more confident script, that the show didn't feel like it had to rely on the beauty of its actors to captivate its audience. However, I do think that's an oversimplified view and frankly, probably kind of judgmental. And maybe there's more to the story. Obviously, the shows have different directors and different producers. Each show is unique and you can't expect to have the same styling in all the shows. However, I do have to wonder if there is a theme or a pattern, so I developed two explanations. First theory, the show's genre influences how teenagers are depicted. Gilmore Girls is not a teen show. While the target demographic includes teenagers, Gilmore Girls is better classified as a family show. It's the kind of show that multiple generations can watch and enjoy. The Vampire Diaries is clearly a teen show primarily targeted towards teenagers. Second theory, the hair and makeup choices on a show are based on the times. This is kind of an obvious one. Of course, shows would reflect the style of the times. Gilmore Girls aired on the WB/CW from 2000 to 2007. The Vampire Diaries aired on the CW from 2009 to 2017. These shows represent two different decades. Now, if I had the time, it would be interesting to do a complete statistical analysis of all the TV shows in this period of time and to map out the hair and makeup choices on each show. I'll leave that to AI once it becomes advanced, but for now, I thought I would take a look at a handful of shows to see if there's any discernible pattern. While Gilmore Girls was on air, we also had Buffy the Vampire Slayer, which aired on the WB and UPN from 1997 to 2003. This show was classified as a teen show, although I think it was so much more than that. On the show, all the actors were styled with clothing consistent with their character. All the female actors, both teenaged and adult, had a full face of makeup, but Willow was kept more natural. Much like Rory, Willow is the reserved, bookish type. So the show gave their actors permission to be more dressed down and fresh-faced. I did find that the actresses on Buffy the Vampire Slayer were a lot more dolled up than the teenagers on Gilmore Girls. Specifically, there's this scene. This scene always throws me off. Once I saw it, I can't unsee it. So Willow, who's supposed to be nerdy, is wearing uncharacteristically heavy makeup right before bed, and this character doesn't do this even during the day at school. There are also many times when Buffy goes to bed and wakes up with perfect hair and makeup, and it always throws me off a bit when Buffy's out patrolling in the graveyard for vampires with heels and perfect lipstick. We also had Dawson's Creek, which aired on the WB from 1998 to 2003. This is another teen show. The actors generally have a very natural look. During regular scenes, like at school or events, the actresses playing teenagers have great hair and makeup, but the show allows them to look more disheveled or more natural at appropriate times. Something that I often look to is what do the actors look like when they're going to bed or waking up or when they're drenched in water, and they do look more natural on Dawson's Creek. We also had Felicity, which aired on the WB from 1998 to 2002. This was classified as a teen show. Much like Dawson's Creek, the actresses are naturally styled. We also had Seventh Heaven, which aired on the WB from 1996 to 2007. This was a family show with teenagers. The female teenagers on the show, Mary and Lucy, are typically naturally styled, which one would expect from a family Christian show. I was actually a little surprised at the amount of makeup put on in some scenes. So obviously, this is not a complete list of all the shows at that time. We also had Roswell from 1999 to 2002, The OC from 2003 to 2007, and One Tree Hill from 2003 to 2012. And there are many, many more shows that were on other networks, but I am keeping things simple. In between Gilmore Girls and The Vampire Diaries, we had Gossip Girl, which aired from 2007 to 2012. All the teens on Gossip Girl were dolled up, always wearing noticeable makeup, wearing makeup to bed. This went with the theme of the show, which was all about glamorous upper-class high school kids in New York, although it doesn't explain every scene. During the Vampire Diaries, we had Pretty Little Liars, which aired from 2010 to 2017. Pretty Little Liars followed the same styling choices as the Vampire Diaries. There was heavy makeup and perfect hair on all the actresses, regardless of what was happening. These girls go through some serious events on the show, and yet they are always looking fabulous. It doesn't matter if they're drenched, they're kidnapped, they're being chased, they look perfect. Glee was another teen show during this period of time. It aired on Fox from 2009 to 2015, and it was also another show where the makeup had a heavier hand when it comes to the teen actors. We also had Teen Wolf, which aired on MTV from 2011 to 2017. The actresses on Teen Wolf were more naturally styled. We also had The Originals, which aired from 2013 to 2018 on the CW. The Originals were a spin-off of The Vampire Diaries, so obviously they were very much like The Vampire Diaries when following the same metric when it comes to hair and makeup. So based on this very cursory and too small of a sample size review, it does seem a little bit like the time period has a greater influence on how teenagers are depicted. Since this is not a comprehensive analysis, I'm not here to suggest that all shows follow this pattern. I'm mostly focused on public network shows, primarily on the WB, the CW, but hopefully this maybe serves as a starting off point for greater research. Styling on the Vampire Diaries. As I mentioned, the actors on that show looked flawless, always full glam, even while showering, going to bed, and being kidnapped. No matter what tragedy befalls them, they look great. There were certainly necessary makeup choices made when a person is supposed to look like they're dying or drying out. The clothing choices did accurately depict the personality of each character, and to be fair, the choice of hair and makeup was consistent with the personalities of the characters. It did all kind of feel very similar when it comes to styling the female characters. Styling on Gilmore Girls. On Gilmore Girls, each character is styled in a manner that reflects their personality and purpose on the show. We don't often see characters being completely dressed down to hoodies and large t-shirts though. When Jess is first introduced, he is dressed very casually, which makes sense for his character. Like I've mentioned before, one way that I judge whether a show is stylistically realistic when it comes to fashion, hair, and makeup is how the character is presented when going to bed. Lorelai and Rory, to me, really do seem casual. They typically wear mismatched long-sleeve shirts and sweatpants. They still wear makeup to bed, but it's subtle, although there are exceptions. Generally, in the first season, Rory looks very barefaced, as does Lane and Paris. As the seasons go on, however, Rory's makeup becomes heavier and her hair has a lot more styling. Lane and Paris continue to have a generally natural look, which is consistent with their characters. The stylistic realism of Gilmore Girls does not appear to hold up for the revival. The Gilmore Girls revival, A Year in the Life, which aired in 2016, appears to have fallen in line with the trends of the 2010s. Gone are the casual shirts and mismatched sweatpants. Everyone is wearing heavy makeup, even to bed. It appears to be a big departure from how the characters were presented on the original show. What's your point? I'm sure that's the question people are thinking. This video is not to disparage or belittle certain shows. I know I'm probably sounding a little judgmental, but I don't think that it's necessarily bad for a show to make all their actors glamorous. It might seem like minute details, but hair and makeup is part of the costume. Although it's not as influential as the script, the setting, or the clothing, the hair and makeup can either work in harmony with the scene or take you out of the moment. I think it can be used as a very powerful tool to enhance storytelling. Much like we can use clothing to demonstrate a character's personality, the hair and makeup can likewise add more nuance to the characters. Particularly, I think it is the range and variability in styling that can create a more seamless viewing experience. Perfect hair and makeup can take you out of a story or make you subconsciously aware of the fact that you're watching a show. Much like people say that good plastic surgery is the kind that you can't see, I think good hair and makeup is the kind that you don't think about. This ties a bit into the iPhone face criticism of modern period films and TV shows. For those who are unfamiliar, iPhone face is a term used to describe how some actors, especially in period pieces, appear too modern, symmetrical, or aesthetically enhanced due to factors like cosmetic procedures, highly symmetrical filtered or sculptured features, lack of period-appropriate imperfections, or a certain blankness or overly smooth look that makes faces seem less expressive or human. In other words, You look at the person and you think, this person has seen an iPhone. In the same way, when you see a character taking a shower and come out with dry hair and full makeup, you think, how long were you in there? This is not to say that the Vampire Diaries or Pretty Little Liars didn't use makeup as a tool to enhance storytelling. Specifically, the Vampire Diaries did a great job of special effects. It also did an excellent job of styling Nina Dobrev differently to play different characters. It was very clear by the hair and makeup when Elena entered the scene and when Catherine entered the scene. I've mentioned earlier that Buffy the Vampire Slayer was sometimes a little too perfect with the hair and makeup styling, but I have to add that the show also used makeup masterfully to convey despair, hopelessness, and loss. The characters didn't always look perfect, and there were certainly moments when makeup played an important role in conveying a message. Although I said I don't want to be critical, I do hope that shows continue to be daring in the use of hair and makeup and storytelling, and that showrunners aren't afraid to make their actors unattractive in order to tell a story. Going back to my original point about having confidence in a script, I would hope that a very strong script would survive even with imperfect looking actors, but I might be too optimistic. What I would love to see is a greater immersion and greater expressive storytelling where the hair, makeup, clothing, and writing works in sync to deliver a message.